Well, I learned about Marie last week, listening to a podcast to This American Life. And Marie is a certified nursing assistant who works in a nursing home in Boston. And in a job where people usually last 1 to 2 years, she has been there 12 years. And she is one of those people who is sort of omnipresent, but also invisible, right? Moving from room to room, caring for her patients and then also their families. And everyone who works there agrees that Marie is the best. She is the best at her job. And even Marie, who's pretty humble and pretty quiet, when you press her, will also agree that she is the best at her job. But as of last week, Marie no longer has a job. You see, Marie is Haitian, and she lives and works in this country under something called temporary protected status. It is a legal status that allows people to live and work in the United States, and it is applied to people coming from countries that are suffering some sort of crisis, a war, political instability, some kind of natural disaster. And Haiti was given that status in January of 2010 after that big earthquake. You might remember seeing it on the news. For fun sometime, ask me how I missed that earthquake by 8 hours. It has been that status renewed and extended over time for the people from Haiti who came here. But last week, our government removed that temporary protected status for the Haitians in the United States. And Marie is no longer allowed to work here. Our first reading today tells us about a new king in Egypt. A new king who doesn't know about Joseph. Now, I suspect you all remember Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, one of the best musicals ever made, I think. Joseph, who saved Egypt from famine with his great dream interpretation ability. Joseph, who brought his family into Egypt. Joseph, whose descendants have been living in peace and harmony in Egypt for generations. But the king, this new king, doesn't know Joseph. He doesn't know about Joseph. And so he looked at the descendants of Joseph, he looked at the Israelites, and he makes a decision, which seems sort of illogical to me, that somehow these people are a threat. Somehow these people are going to rise up and take over the country, and he should be afraid of them. And thus he begins a campaign to make sure that everyone else is afraid of them too. And in order to dwindle their numbers, to break their spirits, they force hard labor on them. They make their lives bitter. The texts tell us that they were ruthless towards the Israelite people. But that didn't have the desired outcome. And so Pharaoh then decrees that the midwives in the labor process should murder the male babies. And when that doesn't work, he then tells everyone in Egypt that they should throw the male babies into the Nile. But here's the thing. The women are not so into this. Somehow, the midwives just can't seem to get to the births before the babies are already born. Imagine that. And we don't know if these are Israelite or Egyptian midwives. Probably both. They can't quite make it. And then there is Moses' mother, She hides her baby boy for as long as she can. And then she puts him in a basket in the river. Now, when I was a kid, maybe the way they told the story, I always thought that she put the basket in the river and then the baby floated down the Nile. But that's not what she did, because Moses' mother was not an idiot. Moses' mother put the baby in the reeds. And lo and behold, Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe. I wonder if Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe there all the time. And Pharaoh's daughter sees this baby, knows it's a Hebrew baby, knows what her father is up to, and she's not an idiot either. She doesn't want any part of this nonsense. So she sends this baby back to its mother to be nursed so that she can save him when he's older. These women outsmart Pharaoh. Not by defeating him, not by overthrowing him, not by organizing a protest. They just refuse to participate in Pharaoh's story. I've been thinking a lot about this Pharaoh all week. This line about how this new king doesn't know Joseph. Does he not know Joseph? Has he never heard the story? Isn't that a story you grow up with in a culture, the guy who saved you? He doesn't know Joseph? Did nobody around him tell him who Joseph was? Did he not want to know? Did he not care? He doesn't know Joseph. Which made me think about how we, as a collective, as a group of humans, can be forgetful. We can let go of things that we thought were important. We can forget the people who came before us. We can forget our history. We can forget our own stories. We are remarkably forgetful and often selectively forgetful. Pharaoh doesn't know Joseph. He doesn't know the Israelites. And so he sees a population that he doesn't know or understand, and so he creates a problem. He invents a threat, and he acts accordingly. Our country has a really complicated history with immigration. With the exception of the indigenous peoples whose ancestors were here long before we were a country, all of us have a migration story. Some people came by choice, and some people came because they had no other choice. Some people came seeking opportunity, fame, and fortune. In California, we call them the 49ers. Some came fleeing violence and war and oppression and famine. Many were brought here against their will. But very few of us can tell our origin story in this country without it being a story where somebody somewhere crossed a border. And yet again and again, we have watched people who have been here for generations decide that the people who have arrived more recently are somehow different, dangerous, less deserving, problematic. And once we begin to see people that way, we become very good at forgetting who they actually are. We forget the nurse, we forget the teacher, we forget the farm worker, we forget the construction worker. we forget Marie. Marie is more than just a person from Haiti here because she's in a protected status. Marie is a woman, a nurse, a neighbor, a friend. Marie is a person. In the gospel today, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they tell him, John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets. He's a prophet. The people give Jesus a category. But Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am?" And Peter names him, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus replies by naming Peter, "You are Peter." Jesus sees Peter. Jesus knows Peter. Jesus names Peter. He names the person standing in front of him. The world teaches us to see categories. Jesus teaches us to see people. The world teaches us to see immigrant, foreigner, refugee, legal or illegal. But Jesus keeps asking us, who? Who is this person? Who is your neighbor? Who is the person standing in front of you? In the letter that Paul wrote to the Romans that we read today, Paul says that we are one body, but that we have different gifts. We are all different members of one body, the same body. We're not interchangeable. We are not categories. We are members of one body who belong to each other. We belong to each other. The world teaches us to see categories. Jesus teaches us to see people, and Paul reminds us that we belong to one another. Marie is one of hundreds of thousands of Haitians who lost their temporary status this week. And there are more than 1 million more people who will likely lose their temporary protected status soon. My heart aches for them. I am scared for them. I am angry that it is my government who is leaving people vulnerable to exploitation. And I feel helpless as I watch this happen in the news. But in today's stories, I find a little glimmer of hope. I find a little glimmer of hope in these Israelite and Egyptian women who refused to be part of Pharaoh's story. They didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know how cool the story would turn out. They only knew that the babies in front of them needed to be protected. And they did the next faithful thing. Time and time again, they did the next faithful thing. And somehow, through these tiny acts of courage and compassion, God was beginning the work of liberation. The story of Exodus isn't just a story about clever people doing cool things to save themselves. though they do a lot of cool things. It's the story of God working through ordinary people who chose to say no to the evil around them. We don't know what's going to happen to Marie or the hundreds of thousands of other people who are no longer protected to live and work here. But we do know that Jesus asks us to see the person in front of us. We do know that we are all members of one body who belong to one another. And we, like the women in Egypt, can do the next faithful thing. Not because we know what's going to happen or how it's going to turn out, but we trust in the God who does know. As our psalm says today, our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Amen.